You didn't break, and heaven recorded every second of it. It wasn't luck. It wasn't stubbornness. It wasn't because you're stronger than everyone else. It was because before you even walked into that trial, I already knew what I'd find on the other side. And what I knew was that you'd still be standing. Stay until the very end of this message. Before it's over, you're going to receive the name of what you are now, and the exact protocol for moving from a position of endurance into the position of authority that this trial has already secured for you. You know what it's like to wake up with a weight on your chest that has no name. It's not sadness with a cause. It's not anxiety with an object. It's something harder to explain because it has no address. You open your eyes, and it's already there. Before the first thought. Before the first movement. And the whole day is going to demand more than what was left over from the night before. You know what it's like to put on armor before leaving the house. Not the armor of God that Scripture talks about, the other one. The one you learn to put on by yourself. The one that makes your face smile at the meeting, in the group texts, in the hallway at work. The one that makes you look whole on the outside, while inside the effort of looking whole is consuming what little was left. You know what it's like to type, "I'm fine," with a shaking hand. The automatic response that went out before you even decided to send it. Because it was easier than explaining what you could barely put a name to. Because the person on the other end wouldn't understand. Because you've tried before and the words came out too small, so you learned to carry it in silence. And you know what it's like to watch people moving forward all around you while you're still in the same place you were. It's not envy. It's more subtle. It's the question that comes at night when it's quiet. The question that doesn't have an easy answer. What am I doing wrong? Why does it seem simpler for everyone else? What do they know that I don't? You're still standing after all of this. That's not small. That's everything. If this message reached you today, hit that like button right now. The like is your public amen. Heaven records what you confess openly. Now I need to tell you 3 things you're going to need to hear until the end of this message for them to make complete sense. First, the hardest trial you went through wasn't punishment. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual, with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video. First, the hardest trial you went through wasn't punishment. It wasn't the consequence of a mistake. It wasn't a random test sent to see if you'd hold up. It was selection, and only those whom heaven had already confirmed before the pressure began receive this level of pressure. Second, before this message ends, you're going to receive 3 concrete steps to move out of the position of endurance. Because enduring was necessary. But enduring isn't the destination. The destination is the authority that endurance revealed. Third, at the end, you're going to be able to say out loud who you are. Not who's left over. Not who held on because there was no other option. Who was tested. Who was confirmed. Who heaven called by name before you even knew there was a name for it. I placed you here because this word is for you. The promise you're going to receive today isn't future. It's the confirmation of what your not breaking has already sealed. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Now tell me, in silence, what was the hardest trial you went through? It doesn't have to be pretty words. It doesn't have to have a neat beginning and end. Just bring it here, inside this message. Because what I'm about to show you only works if you're thinking about it. There are signs that what you went through wasn't an accident. There are signs that every moment of it had a purpose that the enemy didn't want you to see. And those signs are in your own body, in your own history, in the patterns you may have called by the wrong name for a long time. The first sign: suddenly, you became intolerant of environments and conversations that used to feel normal. Places where you've been for years suddenly felt too small. People who used to make sense started to feel noisy. Conversations that used to pass unnoticed now arrive like interference. You may have called this impatience, isolation, something wrong with you. It wasn't. It was your spirit recalibrating the level of access that will be permitted in the next cycle. Someone who has passed through maximum pressure doesn't come out the other side accepting just any frequency. The intolerance isn't weakness, it's the fine-tuning of someone who's been confirmed. The second sign: an internal silence started to appear in moments where there used to be anxiety. Not the absence of pain, not the end of the problem, but a different layer, an anchoring that wasn't there before. You look at the situation that used to paralyze you, and something inside went quiet in a way you can't explain. You may have distrusted this silence. You may have thought it was numbness, that it was disguised giving up, that it was you simply running out of energy to feel. It wasn't. It was the arrival of a level of grounding that only comes after a trial that shook everything weak. What's left standing is what's real. The third sign: there's something someone said to you, maybe in a low voice, maybe in a text, maybe in a look, that stayed inside your head for weeks. A phrase that tried to name you in a way that wasn't true. And the more you tried to let it go, the more it came back. You may have thought this was the wound still open. It wasn't. It was your spirit rejecting a false name. The persistence of that phrase doesn't mean it had power. It means your identity was being forged in resistance to it. Every time that voice tried to name you and you didn't accept it, even without knowing you were doing it, heaven recorded it. The identity being engraved on you is exactly the opposite of what that phrase tried to imprint. The fourth sign: you take inventory at night. The list of what hasn't arrived yet. The things that should have happened and didn't. The promises that seem overdue. The next step that still hasn't revealed itself. Your mind does the math every night before sleep. What you called worry, purposeful insomnia, spiritual vigilance that hasn't rested yet. But what's happening is different. The spirit already knows the next cycle won't have to be waited for in the same way. What's coming now won't be waited for with anxiety. It'll be received with authority. The mind hasn't received that memo yet, but the spirit is already in reception mode, not waiting mode. Before the last sign, I need to tell you, this is the hardest one to hear. It's the one the enemy spent the most time trying to make you ignore. Because if you understand what this sign means, everything the enemy built to diminish you will collapse at once. The fifth sign: there was a moment when you were publicly silenced. A meeting, a conversation, an environment where you had something to say and you were cut off mid-sentence. Where your speech was interrupted, deflected, dismissed, and you didn't fight back. The enemy tried to make this look like humiliation. He tried to engrave in you that the forced silence was proof you didn't have enough standing to be heard. He tried to use that moment to plant a doubt about your worth. This sign is the highest of all. Because someone who fights back from a place of insecurity needs to prove they have standing. Someone who remains silent from a place of authority doesn't need a platform to have what they have. You didn't fight back because something in you already knew you didn't need to. That wasn't weakness. It was the clearest sign that you were already operating in authority without needing to demonstrate it. If these signs have reached you today, write free in the comments. The decree has been confirmed. Close your eyes for a second. Take a deep breath. What I'm about to tell you now doesn't work if your attention is divided. Bring everything you are here. There was a man named Job, and what the text doesn't make clear at first reading is that heaven didn't send the trial to find out what Job was made of. Heaven already knew. The trial was sent because heaven had absolute certainty of the result before the pressure even started. The conversation that happened before Job's trial wasn't a bet. It was a declaration. God didn't say, "Let's see what Job does." God said, "You won't find anyone like him." The trial was authorized from this side because this side already had certainty. Job was tested at the exact measure of what he was capable of sustaining. No more. The maximum pressure was sent to the man heaven had already confirmed for that pressure. The viewer who has made it this far is on the same side as Job, not on the side of someone who survived by luck, on the side of someone heaven already knew before the trial began. There's a law in the process of forging steel that confirms the same truth in different language. The metal that receives the most heat isn't the weakest in the furnace. It's what will bear the greatest weight. The technical process of tempering increases the temperature precisely on the material that has the structure to handle the transition without breaking. The heat isn't destroying. It's reorganizing the molecules so that what forms is stronger than the original material could be. The hardest trial wasn't an accident. It was the technical process of preparing the material for the function others couldn't fulfill. You weren't heated beyond the limit. You were heated to the exact limit of what would be necessary for the structure being formed. Both Job and the steel reveal the same law. The level of the trial is proportional to the level of the function. Whoever receives the maximum pressure isn't the weakest on the list. It's the one who will carry the heaviest later. The level of what was demanded of you up to this point is the map of the authority being prepared for what's coming now. Do you identify more with Job or with the steel? Write in the comments which one hit closer. Let me stop for a full minute. You've arrived at this moment of this message without breaking. That's not an opinion. It's an observable fact. The trial you brought here inside, when I asked you to remember it, is real. And you didn't break under it. The pressure you felt wasn't random. It came with an address. It came at the specific measure of what heaven already knew you could sustain. It wasn't chance. It was calibration. What was tested wasn't your faith in abstract terms. It was your identity under extreme conditions. Anyone can say they believe when they're comfortable. What the trial revealed is who you are when there's no more comfort, when there's no more audience, when there's nothing left but what you really are. And every sign you identify today isn't weakness. They're coordinates. They're the coordinates of where you are on heaven's map. They're the proof that the process is complete, not still in progress. Before I reveal to you who you are now, I need to speak directly. I saw every moment you could have broken, and you didn't. I saw when the pain was at its peak, and still you stayed. I saw when no one else saw, when the decision to stand happened in silence, without human witness, without recognition. I was there. I recorded it. What's about to be revealed isn't a title you earned. It's what I call you when I speak to heaven about you. You are the unbroken, not the one who tried and failed less, not the one who resisted because there was no other way out. The one who, at every breaking point, at every moment where breaking would have been understandable, at every instant where giving up would have had a reasonable justification, kept the inner position intact. I saw every breaking point you crossed without breaking what was inside. Every single one. I was present when the decision was made in silence. I know the real cost of every time you stood. This identity isn't exaggerated. It's precise. What this identity authorizes is the following. You can stop calling weakness what was, in truth, conscious endurance. The silence wasn't weakness. The stillness wasn't passivity. The fact that you didn't fight back wasn't cowardice. It was the mark of someone who already knows they don't need to prove what they have. You are the bearer of the maximum trial. The hardest trial isn't sent at random. It isn't distributed randomly among all who ask for strength. It's sent to the one heaven has no doubt will sustain the weight. The trial you carried wasn't assigned to you because you were available. It was because heaven already had the answer before the question was asked. I knew what you were before you entered that pressure. The trial wasn't to show me who you are. It was to show you. I already knew. I sent the level of trial that corresponds to the level of the function you will carry. There's no other reason for this level of pressure. The maximum trial is proof of maximum function. What this identity authorizes is the following. You can stop asking, why me? The answer has already been given by your own survival. Why you? Because heaven knew what it would find on the other side. You are the confirmed, not by accumulated merit, not by flawless spiritual performance, not because you never wavered in thought or feeling. The confirmation comes from one thing only. Not breaking under maximum pressure is the signature of identity, not a result you produced. It's revealed nature. The trial didn't create who you are. It revealed who you already were. I saw your nature being revealed. Not created, revealed. What the pressure did was strip away what was in front of what you are. Layer by layer, what was superficial gave way, and what remained is what's real. What remained is what I always saw when I looked at you. What this identity authorizes is the following. You can stop asking permission to occupy the space the trial has already guaranteed. The confirmation has already happened. It doesn't need to be validated by one more trial, one more cycle, one more demonstration. It's sealed. Write in the comments the name of the identity you just received. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. What's coming in the next videos is a continuation of what started here. Now comes the protocol of the confirmed. 3 steps, simple in form, profound in effect. Step 1, name out loud the hardest trial you didn't break under. Not in thought, out loud, with real words, even if no one is listening. Taking the trial out of the abstract and giving it a concrete name closes the cycle of mental repetition. As long as the trial stays in thought without a name, it comes back. When it has a name, it stops being a ghost and starts being history. You went through this. Give a name to what you went through. Step 2, declare the identity that trial revealed. After naming the trial, say out loud, "And this revealed that I am," and complete it with what you received today. Not what you think you should be, not an aspiration. What survival has already proven. The declaration doesn't create the identity, it aligns what you say with what already is. Step 3, close the access. There's a voice that will try to reopen what you just closed. It will try to appear today, tomorrow, in the next few hours. Identify it beforehand. It's not conviction. It's noise. When it arrives, you don't need to debate it. You name it. This is noise, and you close the door. The confirmation sign of this protocol isn't immediate relief. It's not euphoria. It's not the feeling that the weight has been lifted all at once. The sign is the internal silence that no longer needs to prove anything. Stillness, not absence of feeling. Stillness. The difference between the two is that stillness knows something that feeling is still processing. If you're receiving this protocol, write "received" in the comments. What was delivered here was delivered. Now I need to prepare you. In the next 72 hours, 3 things will be launched against what you received today. Not as a possibility, as a certainty. The first tactic arrives disguised as humility. It's the retrospective review. The voice that will say, "But did I really not break at all?" It will sound like honesty with yourself. It will sound like spiritual maturity, not to accept what you received without questioning it. It will sound like prudence, not to proclaim yourself confirmed without more evidence. It's not. True humility doesn't reopen what has already been sealed. It receives with gratitude. The second tactic arrives disguised as discernment. It's the comparison of trajectories. The voice that will point to someone who went through a smaller trial and got further faster. That will suggest that if you were really confirmed, the results would already be visible. That will try to invalidate the value of what you endured by comparing your path to someone else's. It's not discernment. The level of the trial is proportional to the level of the function. Comparing different trajectories is comparing different functions. It's not a valid parallel. The third tactic arrives disguised as preparation. It's the postponement of the position. The voice that will say, "It's not time yet to act as confirmed." That will suggest one more cycle, one more trial, one more waiting period before you can occupy the space that is already yours. That will present postponement as responsibility. It's not. Identity doesn't need more proof to be legitimate. It's sealed. And there's the internal enemy. The voice hardest to name because it uses your own language. It's the voice that says enduring in silence doesn't count as victory because no one saw. That says what happened without a witness has no value. That says the trial only validates if there's external recognition. That's a lie. Heaven was present in every silent moment. What was recorded there doesn't need human validation to be real. Write protected in the comments. The decree has been sealed. Put your hand on your chest now. Feel the weight of your own feet on the floor. Keep your eyes open. Stay present. There are 3 burdens you're going to release now. The first, the weight of still having to prove to someone that you didn't break. You don't have to carry that anymore. The proof has already been given. Not to a person, to heaven. And heaven was a sufficient witness. The second, the doubt of whether the endurance was worth anything when no one recognized it. The value of what you sustained doesn't depend on human recognition. It never did. What was seen where it matters. The third, the fatigue of carrying the trial as a burden instead of as confirmation. The trial was heavy. It was real, but it's no longer what you carry. It's what revealed who you are. That's different. A burden is what exhausts. Confirmation is what positions. Now I speak directly. I was there when you typed, "I'm fine," with a shaking hand. I was present in that specific moment when the response was easier than the truth, when protecting the other person from not understanding seemed kinder than being seen. I saw the tremor. I saw what was behind the message. I saw what you didn't say. I was there when the nameless weight on your chest was present, before the first thought of the day, before you opened your eyes, before you formed a single word. I was there in the silence of the early morning, in that instant when the day already weighed heavy before it began. I didn't absent myself from that moment. I was there, and in every one of those moments, in every silent instant when no human being was present, in every decision to stand that happened without an audience, I saw. I recorded. I was present as a witness to what you chose, even when no one knew a choice was being made. What you went through in those periods didn't go unnamed in heaven. I call you by the name the trial revealed. Unbroken. Bearer. Confirmed. What's yours is already sealed. Not by human achievement, by divine confirmation. What you will carry from now on isn't the weight of the trial. It's the authority of the one who went through it. You aren't late. You were prepared. What seemed like delay was the necessary heat. What seemed like excessive pressure was the exact measure of what will be required later. You came out of the furnace not weakened. You came out with the structure reorganized to carry what's coming now. Now say it out loud before you write it in the comments. I didn't break. I was confirmed. Say that out loud, with your hand on your chest, with your feet on the floor. Let your own voice hear what heaven already knows. It is done. What was delivered here was delivered. Now write "done" in the comments. Not as a formality, as a decree, as the word that seals what was received. If you know someone who is right now in the middle of the hardest trial of their life, someone who doesn't yet know that not breaking is the highest sign that they've been confirmed, share this message with that person now, not tomorrow. Now. They need to hear today what you heard today. The next video is already waiting for you. The algorithm knows what you need to see next. You are not the same person you were when this message began. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual, with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.